References to pop culture is very popular amongst the media, from books talking about movies, movies talking about books, songs talking about books and movies. It's not uncommon to see. But do you know how does it affect your story and how and when you should use them? Well, today we are going to find out. Hi, welcome to the Blue Chair. My name is Moon, and today we are going to answer those questions by analyzing Emily Henry's Happy Place. Let's make a list of pros and cons. Number 1, it directs you to your target audience. Emily Henry knows her target audience. We can see it by what kind of celebrity she references, what kind of music she references, what kind of movies, etc. We can tell that she knows her target audience. And you should too. You should understand who your target audience is before you even consider referencing something that they might not even know it exists, they might not even understand, they might not even like it. It's important to know generally to whom you are going to speak to. Number 2, it can help you world build by creating an ambiance and a certain realism, by mentioning, for example, a song or a certain person from a certain time. It can help your reader travel back there. It can also bring feelings of nostalgia. For example, if you reference certain artists from a certain time, and if your target audience is from that time, it can be a technique that you can use to bring that feeling. But that also needs to be correlated to the first point, that is, you need to know your target audience. Now the cons. At the same time that it connects you to your audience, it can also date your story. Meaning that if you reference something very specific of today, you can lose momentum and the relevance that it has now, it won't have in the future. And the audience that will read your book in 10 or 20 or 50 years won't understand that reference. So be aware of that. Number 2, you never know what the future holds. Any media, any person, anything, we never know how in a few years it's going to be seen by the majority of the population, by your society. Be aware that by referencing certain things, you are undeniably tying them to your work. Third and last, the same way that includes people, it can also exclude a lot of people. The more references that you include in your manuscript, the smaller the pool of readers will be. If you add one pop culture reference, your target audience, even if they don't understand necessarily, you can drive by and that will be fine. But the more you keep adding and adding references, the only person that will understand your novel will be yourself. Okay, let's dive into some excerpts from Happy Place by Emily Henry. Sabrina was a born and raised Manhattan heiress whose wardrobe was pure Audrey Hepburn and whose bookshelves was stuffed with Stephen King. Cleo was the painter daughter of a semi-famous music producer and an outright famous essayist. She'd grown up in New Orleans and showed up at Mattingly in a paint splatter overalls and vintage Doc Martens. Here we have referenced 2 personalities and 1 brand. What kind of information do these references actually give to the readers? Sabrina's fashion is just like Audrey Hepburn. Okay, but what does that really says about her? Most of her target audience probably knows who Audrey Hepburn is and what kind of fashion she wore, and that's alright. But I also want to know what goes on inside. Next, it said that her bookshelves are filled with Stephen King. Again, what kind of information does that give us about Sabrina? That she likes thrillers and mysteries and all of that? Sure, okay, but why does she like that? What kind of person is she? So let's take out these references and see what changes in the narrative and what information that we can give instead of just one single name. Sabrina was an uptown heiress whose wardrobe was pure 1950s fashion, elegant, structured, and poised, framed by oversized sunglasses, and whose bookshelves were stuffed with anxiety-inducing thrillers and mysteries. just like her. Not depending on external references forced us to explain better, to show who the character is, and not having to depend on the hope that your reader can conjure from memory what kind of fashion Audrey Hepburn that you mean that Sabrina is a very structured, uptight, controlling person, or what Doc Martens are. There are shoes. There are shoes, multiple type of shoes, and many people might know what they are, many might not. But the truth is that in this case specifically, it does not really matter. If you say vintage shoes, it will be the same. The information is the same. And if the information is the same, it's better to choose clarity and assertiveness and say what you mean instead of just name dropping. There's a better example of how to use a reference a little bit after in this chapter, and it goes like this. The effect is somewhat tempered by the way she keeps jumping up and down with the poster board on which she scrawled in her god-awful serial killer handwriting, Sage Carol Singer's A Love Actually reference that could not actually make less contextual sense. So here we have another reference to a movie, in this case Love Actually, and to a specific scene of that movie. But even if we don't understand or never saw that movie, we know that the main character feels that Sabrina, is weird by showing up with the boards saying it's Carol Singers. Here's a good example of something being referenced and also in a way explained to the reader what you actually mean by that reference and why are you using it, and especially what the character in question is feeling about certain reference, right? Let's go to a few more examples. I loved how Sabrina's head would tip back on an upright cackle whenever she read something particularly terrifying, and she'd kick her Grace Kelly loafers against the foot of the bed. So here, just her loafers, or just she kicked her feet on the bed. The important picture here is Sabrina kicking on the bed from excitement, from laughing, not necessarily what kind of brand are her shoes talking about Sabrina. She looks as ever like a platinum Jackie O, with her perfect toned olive arms and her classic black pedal pushers, not to mention the vintage silk scarf around her glossy bob. Here she's talking about Sabrina, and we already have Audrey Hepburn as her reference for the outlook of Sabrina, so why add another person to the mix when it's not even necessary? She loops an arm around my shoulders and turns me towards the car, a cloud of Chanel No. 5 following us. It's been her signature scent since we were 18, and I was still sporting a Bath & Beyond Works concoction that smelled like vodka soaked cotton candy. Here, even though many people, I assume, don't have the smell of Chanel No. 5 just engraved in their memory and they can summon it at any time, here it's not necessary. It's more of a comparison in how the character feels compared to her friends, in this case Sabrina, where she says that she smells like Chanel No. 5, which is a high luxury adult brand, and Harriet, the main character, the perspective we are on, smells like vodka soaked cotton candy. The interpretation that I make was Sabrina felt more mature and more adult, and she felt still like a kid. Okay, so next we have parts Photoshop good looking, thick dark hair with a wave, strong jaw, perfect white smile, type A lawyer with a long-term signature scent, Tuscan leather Tom Ford. So my question is, what's a Tuscan leather Tom Ford scent? I personally do not know. How important is that he smells one specific way? Throughout the story, it is never mentioned again. I checked. He doesn't have a smell that he is distinguished by. This was just an attempt of character building. It was sort of shallow because it didn't actually build character. It's just an information that I have of him that I really could have gone without, really. because it does not matter to the story. If you're going to say something, it has to matter. That applies to every aspect of the story, including pop culture references, and in this case, a smell. If he is not distinguished by the smell, if the smell is not important whatsoever, then why mention it? You know, it's just unnecessary information, and we don't want unnecessary information in a manuscript. Actually, we want the opposite. We want it as tight and as clean as possible, so that the reader can go through your story and live it like it's happening to them. And the more clutter there is in your story, the less effective it is, and the harder it is for your reader to get into it. Another example of a brand related reference is "That's just her new face," Kimi says, popping up onto a stool and stuffing her hand into a bag of Tacky Fuegos on the counter. I don't know what Tacky Fuegos are. I had to research it. There aren't any in my country that I know of, or at least they are not that popular. I've understood that they are hot chips after my research. And here I wonder, why not just say she stuffed her hand into a pack of chips? And if it's important that the fact that they are spicy, she stuffed her hand into a pack of spicy or hot chips, crisps, whatever you want to call it. You know, like, make it simple, make it clear. There's no need to add reference for the sake of adding references. Speaking of food, another example. My eyes dropped to a summer gas board of paper cartons he's carrying. Twizzlers, Nerds, Red Hot, Poppers, and Milk Duds. Is this really that important? Naming all of these sweet and candies, I think I only know Milk Duds. I don't know the rest of them. I associate it with the context of the situation, but is it really important to just a name drop of 3 or 4 candy sweet brands? Is it really? In my opinion, it's not that important. If you replace all those names with a bag full of candy, the information that you retain will be exactly the same. Okay, before you go, let's recap. First, if you are going to use references, do know your target audience. You cannot skip this step. 2, if you want to build a timeless story, use references that will be relevant today and tomorrow, not just today. Or number 3, you need to be cautious that public opinion will change no matter what you do. So when you are using certain references, be sure to understand that you are tying those people, those books, those movies, whatever it is that you want to reference, to your novel and to your story, and that can go great or can also backfire, and like the phrasing goes, that didn't age well. Number 4, there is such things as too many references. This book, in my opinion, again, just so we are clear, this is my opinion, fell a little bit into the spectrum of too much. I felt like I wasn't part of the group sometimes. Like I wasn't a part of the world. Many references I did not understand. They were not a part of where I lived, of my surroundings, and since they were not always explained what they were and why they were important to the story, why they were important to the character, I felt alienated many times. Okay, so we are done for today. I hope you learned a lot. I never use references. I just use common language without having to reference a brand or a person or a book or a movie. For me, as a writer, it makes more sense for the stories that I'm writing, but of course you are different than I, and that's totally fine. Just be aware of all the things that I said today, and hopefully you can use references and have your readers excited and going along with you and with your story, and everyone will be happy. Okay? Then I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.